welcome back to the Girly Girl Bookworm. So today for you, I have my June wrap-up part 1. I have to say, this part of the month has been really weird for me. Again, I haven't been reading as much as normal, which again is fine, but my ratings have been either really I started off the month strong, and I feel like I started pittering off. I don't know. It's like a weird, I think I'm averaging like 3.5 stars right now, which is like not typical right now. And I only own 3 of the books that I finished. So like that's bizarre to me, but let's just get started. So the first book that I finished in the month of June was Meant to Be Mine by Hannah Orenstein, and I was lucky enough to get this through Netgalley. I really enjoyed her previous novel, Head Over Heels, so when I saw she was coming out with another book, I instantly requested it. This is a romance novel, but it kind of has a magical realism kind of twist, where our main character's grandmother can predict to the day that you will meet your significant other. And today is her day, and she's super excited. She's about to get on a plane to go to her sister's surprise engagement party, and she ends up sitting next to this guy, and they have an instant buzz connection, and she knows that this is her person. It's her date. She's known it for quite a few years now. And then she kind of has to decide, is my love life really up to, fate? Is it fated? Or can I make my own destiny, which is kind of fun. So I give this one 4 stars, and I really enjoyed this one. I know that it's kind of gotten some mixed reviews, but for me, I really enjoyed it. I did not necessarily always love, our main character, but I think that you can kind of relate to a situation where, you feel like you are obligated to this date and to this family tradition. So she does try to kind of force things that are not really, should not be forced, and she doesn't communicate as well as she should. So she's got some issues there where you kind of are annoyed with her at points, but then you're I kind of can understand where she's coming from and why she makes the choices she makes. I did like the ending. I did want a little bit more magical realism, just because I don't know, I'm really on a magical realism kind of kick right now. So anything that kind of has any hint of it, I'm please, I need it. So I wanted it to be a little bit more magical. I wanted to understand this being able to predict dates. I wanted more of that for the book, but other than that, I had an enjoyable experience with it, so I gave it 4 stars. Then I listened to If for Any Reason by Courtney Walsh. Now, this is one that I've had on my shelf for a very long time. I can't believe that I haven't picked it up sooner. But once I saw, with the summer coming and, the beach cover, I was like, you know what? It's finally time. And I found it on Hoopla as an audiobook, and I really enjoyed this one. This one's probably my favorite book that I read so far this month. I gave this one 4.5 stars. This one, if you like Christian fiction books, and you like Ellen Hildebrand, you're going to like this one. So we are following our main character, and she is heading back to Nantucket. She's not been to Nantucket since her mother died in a car accident there when she was a child. She is coming back because her grandfather has left her the house, so she's going to kind of clean it up and try to sell it. And she ends up bumping into the neighbor, which is a boy that she knew when she was on the island. And it's kind of their second chance romance, but we're also trying to figure out what really happened to her mother. So we're also getting an alternate perspective of her mom when her mom was falling in love on the island. There is I don't know if you could call it twist, but there's a character that I definitely figured out who they were 60% into the book. And I was worried that it was going to ruin it for me, and it didn't. I really enjoyed this one. I only gave it 4.5 stars instead of 5 because there's something that kind of happens near the end and it just felt too soon and too much. I understand it's a romance novel, but there's also a second book. So I'm you didn't have to go that fast. So I gave it 4.5 stars, but I'm really looking forward to picking up the sequel. I really enjoyed this one, and 4.5 stars. Then I listened to Counterfeit, and I got this one through Libro FM's ALC program, and I really enjoyed this one as well. So this was another June release, and we are following a woman who you can tell has gotten caught up in a bad situation. She is talking to a detective, and she is telling her story of how she basically got involved in this counterfeit scheme, basically where her and her friend would basically buy real products, like so real Louis Vuitton or real Gucci, and then they would return a fake. So then they would get the money back from the real one, and then they would like sell the real one on eBay, but get the money back because they were giving them back a fake essentially. And we know that it appears that she's been caught, so we are now following her story through what she's telling the detective. And I found this one really fun. If you're going to listen to an audiobook that you want that's like really, really quick, like I think it was 7 hours. So if you're someone like me who listens at like 2.5 to 3 times speed, you're going to get through it like very fast. I liked this one because there's definitely like at one point I was like, this is starting to get kind of like, okay. But then there's a little bit of a twist, and then you get something else that's going on, and it was a really fun, cute little story. This is like one that I feel like you really kind of can't talk about without spoiling. So if you're looking for a fun read, I would recommend this one. 4 stars. Then I read The Guilty Couple. This one comes out June 28th, and I got this one also through NetGalley. This is by C.L. Taylor. I've really liked C.L. Taylor in the past. Like I said, I've read a ton. I've only read one other book. I read The Sleep, and I really enjoyed The Sleep. So when I saw she was coming out with a new book, I signed myself up for it. This is following a couple, and the woman goes to jail because her husband catches her trying to like kill him off. So she goes to jail for like planning his murder, and now it's her getting out, and she wants revenge because she never set him up for trying to get murdered. So she was set up for setting up his murder because she never set up his murder. So she wants to make connections with her daughter, but she also wants revenge from her husband because this is ridiculous. She didn't try to kill him. And so we're getting her perspective. We are getting his perspective, but we're also getting this other lady's perspective. She's like his athletic, like his trainer, but also a cop that was involved in the case, but also is his lover. So like we're getting her perspective. And to be honest, I gave this one 3 stars, and I really felt like this was like a very mediocre story. Like it had a good like ending and twist, and like it was readable, but like I didn't need that lady's perspective. I think if we took that lady's perspective completely out and we flushed out the rest of the story, I would have been so much better with it than getting this lady's perspective. It made no impact to the story. I like understand kind of why it was this perspective, but like it had no place in my opinion. So I ended up going with 3 stars. Again, I think it could be like a good like beginner thriller, but just for me, I expect a little bit more from my books. Because I think that third perspective just slowed the book down and didn't need to be that slow. Then I read The Blind Side by Candy Steiner, which I was luckily able to get an arc of that one as well. That one comes out. Oh, actually, it came out. It came out yesterday. It came out the 15th. This is the second book to Fair Catch. On Goodreads, they're not listed as sequels, but they essentially are because it's following the same school. And you see the characters from the first book in this one, and we met some of these characters in the past book. So, like, they're definitely related. So, in this one, we're following Clay. He is the star safety on the team. And he ends up having this connection with a PR girl. I'm blanking on her name. Gianna. So, Gianna works PR for the team. And she really has like the hots for a musician at the coffee place, and he just recently got broken up with his long-term girlfriend. So they make this like fake dating plan where they're going to date each other to basically make the other people jealous. You know that's not how it's going to go down. You know they're going to fall in love with each other. So I think I put in my like a thing like they're going to be scoring more than just points on the field. They're going to score each other. This one is definitely very steamy. It's got some tropes that I don't necessarily love. So I did give this one 4 stars, and I have a feeling it's just because I don't love like the idea of making other people jealous. I don't mind fake dating when it's like, oh, I need you to pretend to date me because I need something for my company, or like I need you to fake date me so my family feels like I'm not alone, or like I don't mind those. I don't love the idea of making other people jealous because it just feels gross to me a little bit. And the other trope that's in this one is that she's a virgin, and I don't really love virgin stories. But the thing that I love about Candy Steiner is, obviously because I've read everything she's written, is basically she could write any trope ever and I will read it and enjoy it. So even though it's not my favorite trope, she has a way of writing it that I'm like, oh right, I forgot I didn't like that. So gave it 4 stars. It is extra straight. I feel like because she's a virgin, it is definitely extra steamy, but I love it because she is this like bookworm and she's constantly talking about like, oh, I'm like a side character in a book. I'm not the main character. And like, you are the main character because you're the main character of the book. But it was a fun little play on it. I love that she was a bookworm. It was fun. 4 stars. Then I read Hyde, which if you saw my book haul from last month, I was like, oh, I pre-ordered it. It just hasn't come yet. And you're like, how come it's still not here? Oh, it came. It came. I read it. And then I instantly sold it. So we read Hyde, and this one is by Kirsten White. And this, I don't know if it's her first adult novel. I've only read her like young adult stuff. But this one sounded so good. It was an amusement park where these people were coming to enter this game of hide and seek for reality TV. And then obviously it was going to be more sinister than that. And so this book was 238 pages, which means that I should have gotten through it like that. No. I think I read like 30 pages and then I put it down for probably at least a week before I re-picked it back up. And then it took me like 2 to 3 days after that to continue, like to finish it. 238 pages. No, 236 pages. Like those 2 pages made a huge difference. But like, I could read about 100 pages in an hour. So that tells you that it was too slow. We're following a bunch of characters. In the synopsis, it really talks about one character and how she's like really good at hide and seek based off of a tragic event that happened in her past. But we're also getting other perspectives of the other players, and there's 14 players that go into this. And it was overwhelming. It was a little too confusing because they weren't like set chapters where it wasn't like, oh, Bonnie gets this chapter and Susie gets that chapter. They would just randomly change in the middle of it. It would just like go from paragraph, you'd be reading from one, and then the next paragraph would be someone else, and you would not know. And it just made me want like a character list with like a bio, like especially with it being a reality TV show, like how fun would it have been to put like casting pictures in the front with a little bio on it? Like I would have loved that. That would have made it so much easier. I also just felt like the sinister element, like it does have like a kind of paranormal-esque to it-ness. So it's more like horror paranormally than like thriller. But I didn't buy it. I just didn't care for it. I felt like the entire book, I kept being like, this could have happened, or this could, like, I found myself being like creatively writing this book in my head, and so I was like, this isn't the story I wanted. So I gave it 3 stars. Didn't love it. I literally, before I finished it, I had like a few more pages left. I like uploaded it to Pango, and in the middle of the night, it was already sold, and I got it straight into the mailbox, so it is gone. Then I read The Bling Ring, finally, by Nancy Jo Sales. I listened to this one on audio. This one is a nonfiction book about these group of teens who were basically back in like, I forgot what year it was. It's like 2010, 2012, I feel like, where they were breaking into like Lindsay Lohan and like Paris Hilton and trying to like break into Orlando Bloom's house, and they were stealing things. And I was really interested in this like forever ago. Like I bought this book for 50 cents, guys. And I just never picked it up. And I don't know why, like I would always go doing my purges, and I was like, but you want to read that. So I just like never got rid of it. So finally I was looking on Hoopla, and it was there as an auto download. And I was like, we're going to do it. We're going to finally read this. And I gave it 2 stars. I don't even know if it necessarily deserved 2 stars. I don't know if it's just I'm not interested in it anymore. Like I am still interested in watching like the dramatic version of it because I want to watch Emma Watson do this. But like it felt so scattered, and it did have important things. Like it talked about narcissism and like why the need to feel famous, like YouTube, like why do we feel the need to like do this? So like I liked that, but like everything else felt so scattered, and I just didn't care either. So that didn't help matters. So I'm happy to say I finally read it. But now I've finally read it. Now I'm done. Then I just finished it last night, Things We Do in the Dark. And this is by Jennifer Hillier. This comes out July 19th. Thanks to Netgalley, I was able to read it early. So this one is following a woman named Paris, and when we first meet her, she's getting arrested for the death of her ex-famous comedian husband who is much older than her, and she is getting arrested for it. And unfortunately, because of the spotlight in the media that's getting drawn to it, somebody from her past who knows who she really is going to try to expose her. So we are learning about her past while she tries to figure out how to get off from this crime before she gets possibly arrested for 2 crimes. So the thing that I love about Jennifer Hillier books is the fact that she kind of writes them in parts. So you start with one character and then eventually you'll get twisted to another part. Maybe it might be another person. It might be another timeline. And it reveals different information, and then it'll bring you to another part and it'll bring you back. And I just think that it's a really fun way to keep you engaged and keep you reading. So I really enjoyed this one. The only thing I will say is definitely big trigger warning for sexual abuse and child abuse. I just felt like I understand it being a plot device. I get that, but there was just so much of it. And when you're trying to read to escape, sometimes it can be a little bit much to be kind of reminded constantly. And this character at one point was getting molested by everybody around her, and it just it was just a little too much. So that's why I ended up going with 4 stars, just because it just felt a little inundated with that, and I just want it, and I understand why it was part of this character's character arc, but it just was a lot. I will say that one thing that I love about Jennifer Hillier books is she always gives you at least one last twist at the very, very end, and I love that about her. So I did enjoy this one. I gave it 4 stars, and that one will be out in July, but if you're interested, it is a book of the month choice. So I always keep my book of the month link down below. Get your first book for $5. So if you want that book, you get that book, you go get it. And then this morning I finished Sea Wife by Amity Gage. Now this book was gifted to me by a fellow coworker. She started it last summer and then just never finished, and she was like, "You read here." This one I borrowed as an audiobook, and I have to say, if you're going to read this book, you need to read it that way. We are getting 2 perspectives. It's about a family who end up getting on this boat with their 2 children, and that's how they're going to live their life now. They're going to live on a boat. And we are getting her perspective of after something traumatic happens, and we are getting his boat log. Of their experience while they were on the boat. And they interchange. So you'll be getting her perspective and it'll just jump to his, and then it'll just jump to hers. And I know that in the book it does distinguish the difference. So his boat log looks like this and then hers is different. But if I was reading it physically, I think I would be very jumbled. The nice thing about the audiobook is her perspective has her voice and his perspective has his voice. And every now and then, I'm not kidding, she would be telling her thing and he'd butt in with a sentence and then it would go right back to her. Or he was talking and she would butt in with a sentence and it would go back. So I highly recommend, if you're going to read this, you're going to listen to it on audio. I was liking this to an extent, and I was thinking it could potentially be a 4-star read because I was engaged. I wanted to know what happened on this boat. I wanted to know what this traumatic thing was. I wanted to know what was going on. He is annoying. I will tell you that I don't like him. They're also from Connecticut, which is fun because I'm from Connecticut, so that was fun. But he's really annoying. And the ending just got real weird. We kind of had the closure moment, and then out of nowhere, just the book kept going, and I was like, what is happening? Why is it still going? So I went 3.5 stars. I'm glad that it was an interesting listening experience, but I wouldn't go recommending it at the same time unless you wanted an audiobook. Yeah, take it or leave it. That's what I feel about that book. Now, the 2 books that I'm currently started right now, I'm probably about to go start a physical read as well, but I started a new audiobook this morning, and I also started a new Kindle book when I was having insomnia at 5 in the morning. So the book that I started on audio is The Fifth Letter by Nicola Moriarty. I believe this is actually Leon's sister. But so far, I'm not a huge fan. So it's about these friends who take this like annual trip together. I think one of their trips, something goes wrong. But right now they're like, oh yeah, we might smoke some pot and we're gonna call our husbands before we smoke pot. And I don't need that. So I might end up DNFing this. And then my Kindle read is I finally got the wish. I finally got the wish from Libby. I've had this on hold forever. I'm about 30% into this one, and I could already tell how it's going to end, which is kind of annoying. So we're following a perspective of a woman who is dying from cancer, and she gets really close with a coworker, and he's like, "Tell me about your past," and she tells about a past. I don't even want to like tell you. So like something happens to her when she's younger. She gets sent away. And I can already tell you what the connection's going to be. And the chapters are super long. Like, you know how like when you're reading your Kindle and it'll be like, oh, there's 5 minutes left in the chapter. Like I just started a chapter and it told me I have an hour left in the chapter. Too long. Too long, Nicholas. Too long. So I can already tell that unless this makes me sob, which it will probably make me sob, if it makes me cry, I'll give it 4 stars. If it doesn't make me cry, it'll probably be 3 stars just because I could already tell you everything that's probably going to happen in this book. But I'm glad that I'm at least finally getting to it. So those are the books that I've read so far. Let me know if you've read any of these down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, everybody.